Welcome to the chapter 5 of React Quickly, and this project is chat with Meteor and React. In this project we will be using React and Meteor to build a real-time chat application. So we are starting with Meteor create chat-meteor, and as a result we would have folder.meteor and 3 files. All of them will have the name chat-meteor, and then we would have .css, .html, and .js. So I renamed .js into JSX. And in the HTML, I've implemented container div with ID content. Everything else is just for the layout to position our content in the middle. So really all we need to do here is just remember to render our React into this container. Let me delete this file and implement it together with you. So we start by creating a variable messages, which will be our persistent Mongo database collection. New mongo.collection, this is the Meteor syntax. Then the chat will be the main chat application or the main chat React component. I'm using mixin React Meteor data that is coming from the React Meteor package. This mixin is available globally. What it does, in addition to get initial state, which is empty, but I just wanted to show you that you can still use get Meteor data, which is very different. It will get a system data from the Mongo database reactivate what it means in the real time. So that's how the chat basically will function. We can have 2 different windows, 2 different sessions, and in real time we will be getting different messages. Just as in Facebook chat or in Snapchat or any other messenger like Slack or HipChat. So in this chat component, obviously we need to add messages. So add message, that's the method that does it. We're using messages.insert, and then we're rendering the UI components. We will be using a few other components to abstract the code, so not everything that we render will be in the chat component. We have some title, we have a paragraph. So one of those components that allows us the abstraction is new message. So new message will have the property addMessage CB or callback, which will be this.addMessage, which we just implemented. It's a method of the chat component. And then the message list will have the prop messages, which will be the messages from that this.data.messages variable. And we close all the brackets and all the parentheses. So let's go over it one more time. It looks very small, but actually we'll have more code in message list and messages. So message list, that's the list of messages. We're passing the property, which will be an array of messages. It's coming from Meteor. And we're using messages.find.fetch.reverse. And then in the new message, we have the handler, which is this function, addMessages. So let's go in order and implement new message first. This is usually start with new message equals react.create class. And here we have addMessage method, which will call the method of the chat component which we have in the property. So the name is addMessages CB, and we are passing two properties in this object. We're passing the name of the user and we're passing the text. And I'm just using FD as a shortcut because I don't want to type React DOM.find DOM node every time. The key here is that we're using references. And I'm wiping out the value of the message because I want to save it and clean it, but I'm keeping the username because most likely the username not going to change on the subsequent messages. The key up is what will enable us to submit the form on enter. 13 is the enter code. And it's a good example how you can capture the key codes. Get event, event.keycode, and then we call the same method, this.addMessages. In the render, start with the div, and we use row fluid. It's a Twitter Bootstrap class for the layout. And we have ID new message. We don't really use it, so you can skip that. So this is a new message form. So I'm using well class, which will just nicely output the gray area around this form. And in the form, I'm implementing my onKeyUp event handler. Now I need two inputs. The first one will be the username. So it's name equals username. And the class name, it's input dash small. And I want to have placeholder. I love to have placeholder and just type my name as that. Placeholders help people to orient. The key here is to use the ref name. That's how React will be able to pull the data by using refs. You cannot use, sometimes we can use event.target.value, but in this case we'll be clicking on the button, so we cannot really use that. We need to use refs. And for the text, the placeholder is hello, exclamation mark, and the ref is message. Very creative, I know. Now the button to send the message itself. So if you don't want to hit enter, you want to click on a button, you can also do that. I'm using btn primary, which emphasizes this button as the most important call to action button, and on click I'm attaching this.addMessage, which will trigger the callback provided in the property, the callback that belongs to the chat component. But it will trigger it with extra information, with the name and the message. Now we implement the last component for our chat application. It's a message list. This will be the table of the messages that either you or someone else submitted. And it's all persistent, it's all saved in the database, so no matter if you crash the application or you close it, the messages will be saved. So we create this var messages, and we are saving basically the property.messages. We want to check if it's empty, maybe the length is 0. If it's not 0, then we would actually render the list of messages, but if it's 0, we would type no messages yet. It's always nice to not output an empty table if you don't have any messages, right? So the table actually looks like this. We use in the class name table, then caption messages. T-head, it's a nice to have element, basically stands for table heading. This is how we're defining the column names. We'd have one column column that is name, and another is for messages. For messages is wider. Now we can implement the body of the table. So we start by using map, and in the iterator we have our message, individual message, and we would return a row and then the cell. And I'm putting the key on a row. React needs the key to optimize the performance. If you don't supply the unique key, it will just give you a warning. It will still work, no worries, but it will give you a warning. So just put a unique key. In this case, _ID is something that MongoDB creates, so I'm just grabbing that and putting that into key. Then I'm having message.name and message.message. It's probably confusing message.message, but one is a property, another is an object. Now I just need to close everything properly. Don't forget to close all the tags and all the parentheses. I have something extra here. So the last thing we need to do here, we already have our 3 components. Now we need to actually render it, and we do it in the client code, Meteor.js client, in the startup callback, Meteor.startup. We put React DOM.render, and then the name of our component, which is chat, that's the main component, which will render new message and message list. And we attach it to the container with ID content. That's it. The last few lines, I just want to show you how to render server-side code in case you need it, or way to put server-side code in case you need to implement it. Maybe you want to make some calls to the third-party API to make them server-side. So you would put them in Meteor.isClient condition. So now we are pretty much done with our implementation. So let's go to the terminal. I'm already in the folder Stage 5, which is chapter 5, and I'm navigating to the chat. And I typed Meteor command. It starts the Meteor Mongo database and all the other wonderful things that this framework has. Does the JSX to JavaScript compilation as well. Remember, we wrote our application in JSX. How cool is that? And don't worry about this from the previous project. So I just refresh it and boom, I see the chat. So that's very nice. I have lots of messages as well. You're probably not going to have any messages. You'd probably see no messages yet. So let's pretend I'm Bob and say howdy, and I see this message. So you see the name didn't change, but the text is wiped out, so you can also use enter. And as you can see, this list right here updates in the real time. It comes from the database. If I go here in a new tab and open it, let's say I'm John now. This is already updated with the new message, John hi. So 2 windows, 2 tabs, different sessions, but they both persist to the same database, and the views updated in real time, so you can communicate with other people. You can host it somewhere like Heroku or AWS, or if you're on the same local network, you can just share your IP number and someone can connect to your chat. That's pretty much it for this example. Thank you for watching.